Okay, we're now getting into the topic of interest. And interest is a fee for borrowing money. Now, it could be a fee you're paying to an institution or a bank, or it could be a fee that the bank is paying you if you have money in an account. Either way, interest is calculated as a percentage of something, a percentage of some amount. Now, as we go through the topic of interest, now specifically in this problem, in the problems in this worksheet are dealing only with simple interest, but there's two types of interest, and we'll discuss those other types in another video. But in any of these interest problems or any of these finance problems, there's going to be some mathematical formula that relates the different quantities: the starting dollar amount, the ending dollar amount, the time it takes, the percentage, the interest rate. And so we have to be real clear on what symbols represent what numbers. And so before we get started on this problem, let's just come up with like a short list of what values are involved and what symbols we're going to be using. Okay, so in this, for the entirety of this topic, capital A and capital P will be used for the starting and ending values. So P is the starting or the principal dollar value, and A will be the future dollar value. So A is future value, P is starting value. We're going to use lowercase r for the annual interest rate. And that annual interest rate, since we're using it in a formula, in a mathematical formula, it cannot be a percentage. We can't use 5.5, for example, in this problem, because it's 5.5%. So the annual interest rate, R, has to be given, let me write this in red because this is important, as a decimal, and we're going to use lowercase t for the elapsed time, and also in red, because this is very important, must be always given in years, time in years. So if in a problem you're given that the time is 6 months, you have to convert the 6 months to half a year. Always in years. Okay, and our formulas for simple interest. Well, interest is a percentage of some starting amount, whether it's an amount borrowed or amount invested, it's a percentage of that amount. And so for the percentage, we're using R. And so for simple interest, after some amount of time has passed, well, let's start with, oh, you know what? Let's add one more letter to this list, and that's going to be capital I. Yeah, so we probably want to have a symbol for the dollar amount of interest. So we use capital I for interest amount in dollars. Okay, so these three, A and P, are the starting and ending amounts, and I is the interest. These are all dollar values. Okay, so with simple interest, to calculate the total amount of interest, well, it's some percentage of the starting amount. And of means multiply, so we need to multiply R times T, or P times R. P times R. And that's for the annual means per year. So that's for 1 year. Now, if this is happening for multiple years, we have to multiply it by the number of years. So I equals P times R times T. That is the interest amount in dollars specifically for simple interest. we'll have another formula in the next section when we deal with compound interest. Simple interest amount. Now, let's talk about future value. How much? So if you borrow some money, so let's look at number one. If Raul borrows $3,000 at 5.5% simple interest, how much does he owe after 4 years when he's required to pay it back? Well, he's going to owe everything he started with, which is the P, plus the interest fee, which is the I. So in the future, he's going to owe all of this amount, that's the P, plus he's going to owe any interest that was charged, and it's going to be 5.5% of the $3,000 per year. So now we already have a formula for I. So we could plug that in here. I is equal to P times R times T. So the future value is equal to P, what you start with, plus I, and I is P times R times T. And that's our formula for future value of simple interest, except when you see this in the textbook, usually what they do is they factor out the P. So it's usually written as P times the quantity 1 plus R times T. And that'll be our, we'll use this version because that's what's in the textbook. This is our formula for future value. And again, we're dealing with simple interest. All right, so we have these two formulas, the dollar amount of the interest and the future value of the interest. Use a different color because there's a lot of red close by. Okay, so Raul borrows $3,000, starting with $3,000. So that's the principal amount at a 5.5% simple interest rate. Okay, so 5.5%, that means R is equal to 0.055. I always have to convert those percentages to decimals. And how much does he owe after 4 years? Okay, so that's our value for T. And the question is, how much does he owe? And so what we're looking for is the future value. How much does he owe in the future, 4 years from now? Okay, so we have P. We have R, 0.055. We have T. And we're looking for A. Now, this is a very good approach to solving any interest problem in this entire chapter, and they're going to get a lot more complicated than this one. So you basically want to take the problem and pull out all the important information symbolically. Now, so far we've just generated 2 formulas, and there's going to be another 4 or 5, maybe 6 more formulas. So by the end of chapter 2, by the end of this topic, we're going to have a list of 6 or 7 or 8 formulas. If you do this, if you generate this list, there will only ever be one formula that fits. So there's only ever going to be one formula that has a P, an R, a T, and an A in it, and nothing else. And that's this one right here. A equals P times 1 plus RT. This is the only formula we're going to have with exactly those 4 letters and nothing else. So this list here, I, A, P, R, T, that list is going to continue. We're going to add a few things to that list when we start talking about other topics like compound interest and effective yield. So there's going to be some more letters we're going to add to this list. So you're going to want to keep a running list here. Okay, so this tells us the formula we're using is A equals P, parentheses, 1 plus RT. And now we can plug in the values that we know. So A is equal to 3,000, parentheses, 1 plus 0.055 times 4. Okay, and as I've said in other videos, I highly recommend using Desmos. Because with Desmos, you can, however you would write the calculation down on paper, that's what it's going to look like when you plug it into Desmos. So we're gonna type in exactly. We're gonna type in exactly what we just. Let's make this smaller so we can see it up here. Yeah, we're gonna type in exactly this. Okay, so we've got 3,000 parenthesis 1 plus 0.055 times 4 close parenthesis. And there we go. Easy as that. You just type it in exactly how you have it written on paper, and we see 3,660. So that is our answer. That is our answer for this problem. I could put it up here for right now. Okay, and so that answers the question, how much does he owe in total? He owes the original 3,000 plus $660 in interest. $3,660. Okay, so just to review this, the final answer is important. So we've gotten the answer to this first question, but what's more important with this video is a general approach that we could take to any problem in this entire chapter involving interest. Now, we're going to have two lists, two important lists, and you probably want to have both of these things, keep a running list on start a blank page in your notebook. One, make like let's actually do this. Let's actually do this. What I would do is have in your notebook, symbols, formulas. Okay. And just keep a running list. So we've got so far I, A, P, R, and T. So just what I had above, you copy that here. And then formulas. I equals PRT. A equals P 1 plus RT. And then next to that, you probably want to write what the formula is telling you. So this would be simple interest amount. I'm writing kind of quickly, so it's a little sloppy. And then future value, simple interest. And now as we go through more topics, you're going to add, there's going to be an N, there's going to be an E, there's going to be, so there's when we're going to add more formulas, more symbols, just if you start this running list now with simple interest, trust me, it will be helpful to use as a reference when you're doing the homework and when you're taking the quiz at the end of the chapter. So that's my advice. Okay, so that about does it for this this video. In the next video, there's 4 more problems on this worksheet to solve.